Heat mode is here, and I'm here to explain it. That way you can be successful with it in the field. Now, if you've never heard of the Digital TrueFlow before, you need to go check out this video. This video covers the basics of the Digital TrueFlow. It's very short. Go watch that video, then come back here and learn about the details that make up heat mode. Now, we are going to break this video into these chapters. These are the topics we're going to cover in this video. Let's get into our first topic, which is going to be furnaces. To do that, we're going to power up the app and we're going to start our workflow selection. So let's go to the home screen and let's make that top workflow selection. Once we do that, we're going to get presented with a new screen which says heating mode and cooling mode. We're going to select heating mode. Now our next page is going to show furnaces, heat pumps, or resistance heat. Let's go ahead and select furnace. Once we do that, we're going to continue through the app of what we've seen before till we get to the systems details page. This is where the brain work happens, so let's talk about it. Okay, we've broke this page into 3 chapters: system construction, design performance, and environmental conditions. Let's talk about system construction. First up, air filter location. That's where the filter is going to be removed and you're going to replace it with the Digital TrueFlow. All right, we've seen that before. Next is the external indoor cooling coil. Let's talk about that for a second. What that toggle is asking you is, if you turn the toggle on, you're telling me that there is a coil downstream from the furnace. If you turn the toggle off, you're telling me there's no coil downstream from the furnace. That matters greatly because it's going to change your pressure profiling sequence on the next screen. Okay? Now, let's talk about design performance. Rated input, rated output, rated temperature rise. Now, where am I going to find this information? Let's look at this furnace. This furnace has a combustion door. If we take that combustion door off, there's a data plate tag on the left or right side. On that combustion door, we will find the input information we need to fill out the design performance. Okay, gonna stop for a second. If we click settings on the app and we go to the back of the app and under workflow settings, there's a title labeled enter furnace output as percentage of AFUE. Okay, let's talk about what that does. If we were to toggle that on and go back to our design performance settings, we're going to notice that rated output was replaced with AFUE percentage. Now, where are we going to find that information? If we go back to our furnace, you know that yellow tag that comes mounted on the outside of the furnace? That's the AFUE tag, okay? And there's a number on there. Let's just say it's 85. We take that number, we go to our app, and we plug in 85 under the AFUE. That's going to replace our output number with the AFUE number, just in case our tag doesn't have a rated output. So that's how we use that piece of information. Okay, now let's get into environmental conditions. That's pretty easy, right? Return air temperature, right? So go find the return air temperature on, basically go to the thermostat if it's close to return air stream. If it's saying 70 degrees, plug in 70 degrees, okay? Now, there's 2 more things that I just popped up on the screen. Now, why did I just show these now and not show them before? Because I wanted you to understand that they're not always going to be there. If you have internet on your tablet or your phone, which is going to be most of the case and most of everybody who uses this, then these will show or they will not show based on that information. Let me explain. If you don't have internet, they're both going to show, okay? And altitude, you don't have to get super specific. All right, get within a couple hundred feet and that's going to be fine. And if you do have internet, that's not even going to show because we're going to geotag that information for you. Now, the next one is high altitude D rate. What does that mean? All right, just know that first, it's optional, okay? Optional meaning if you're below 2,000 feet, don't worry about it because it doesn't apply to you. Now, if you're above 2,000 feet, it does apply to you. And that means you need to go look up the information from the manufacturer, find what the D rate capacity is at that altitude, and enter that percentage there. It's different for all furnaces, so you got to look it up. Now, that's only going to show up when you're above 2,000 feet, right? And you have internet. If you do not have internet, it's always going to be there. So if you're below 2,000 feet, just don't enter anything into that category. And that's how you handle that, okay? All right, that is furnace mode. Okay, next up on our list is heat pumps. So let's go back to that screen where we could select from furnace, heat pump, resistance heat, and go ahead and select heat pump, right? And we're gonna keep continuing till we get to the systems details page, right? That's where the brain work happened. Okay, up first, we're gonna cover air filter location. We did that before. That's where the TrueFlow is gonna go, make that selection. The next one is furnace installed. Let's talk about that toggle for a minute. What does that mean? If you turn that toggle on, you're telling me that there's a furnace installed before your indoor coil, right? Essentially, you're telling me you have a dual fuel system. So if you toggle that on, that's what that's telling me. Now, if you have an air handler, you toggle that off, and you're gonna get an air handler for your pressure profiling sequence on the next page. So make sure you pay really close attention to that toggle and answer it properly. Okay. Next up, design performance. This is pretty basic and easy. It's going to have the tonnage. So we're gonna go to the outdoor unit, just like we did in cooling mode, and we're gonna pluck that model number and find the tonnage of the outdoor unit and enter it in here under design performance. Pretty easy. Now, next up, environmental conditions, right? Just like heating mode, we gotta enter return air temperature. Okay. That's all we have to do for heat pump under system details. Now, I want to go a few screens further, and I want to act like I've already ran a test. And why do I want to do that? Because we added something new, and this is probably my favorite part of heat mode right now, right? It's where we have airflow and total external static pressure shown and the subdials. But we've added something down here. You'll notice there's an info button, okay? And then we have a number with kW. What does that mean? Basically, we've done the research to say if you are testing a heat pump and this is your airflow and your heat pump is running, this is the maximum amount of kW resistance heat that you can run with the heat pump at the same time. That's pretty cool. Okay, so I wanted to make sure I covered that. That way you've seen it on the report and you knew what it meant. Okay, so that is heat pumps. Next up on our list, resistance heat. All right, let's jump back to that page where we have furnace, heat pump, resistance heat. Let's make that resistance heat selection. Okay, now let's continue till we get to the systems details page and let's talk about those details. All right, air filter location, we covered that. Now it says external indoor cooling coil. Now what does that mean? So most of the time you'll have that toggle off. When you toggle that off, you're basically telling me that you have a basic air handler with electric heat installed. No big deal. But if you turn that toggle on, you're telling me that you have a situation where you have an air handler that does not have a coil in it, but has an external coil mounted downstream. I know these ain't very common, but they exist. I've seen one or two in my life. All right, so if you see that, that toggle needs to be on, because remember, that's gonna change your pressure profiling, okay? Now, design performance, resistance capacity. Where are we going to find this information? So here we have an air handler, right? And if we take that top door off, if you haven't installed an electric resistance heat kit, basically it comes in a box, you slide it in, and typically about 4 screws will bolt it into the cabinet. On that plate that mounts to the air handler on the inside, there's going to be a sticker. That sticker will have a kW rating on it, and that's about the only place I know you're going to find it, okay? That kW rating needs to be entered right here in resistance capacity. So go ahead and make that entry. All right, now we've got environmental conditions where we're going to enter return air temperature. Easy peasy, right? And that's all we have to enter to handle resistance heat. Okay, done. Let's talk about the last chapter, which is workflow settings. Now, when we want to find these, we're going to select settings in the bottom of the app, and we're going to find the title workflow settings. Now we've already talked about enter furnace output as percentage of AFUE. So if you missed that, go back to the furnace chapter where we explained it. Let's talk about always use SCFM or always use ACFM. When you get this update, we're going to automatically toggle on always use SCFM, which is standard cubic feet per minute or standard air. Okay. If you want to see ACFM, you'll just need to toggle that on. Now, whatever you choose, it's going to stay that way. So if you want to change it, just remember, you got to go to settings, you got to make the change, and it's going to save that. Now, the next one is use manufacturer's max TESP. Now, to explain this one, I'm going to toggle it on, and then I'm going to go back to a workflow and show you where it lives. So let's pull up a heat pump systems details page. Now under this page, you'll notice under design performance, there's a new entry there, okay? And there's a default number. You can select that and we can change it to whatever number you want it to be. But it needs to be the number that you have looked up in the manufacturer's literature for the fan performance, okay? That's how that tool is going to be used. Now, that's workflow settings and that's heat mode.